streaming. We've been having some issues with that.
With what?
The live streaming doesn't show up sometimes, but fortunately since we're recording separately, we can upload it later. All right.
I've got strong internet, so I'm going to go ahead and record.
We've been having some issues with that.
And I show where it's 6.
The live stream is working today. All right. Shall I begin Kirtan? Shall I start, Maharaj?
Why not? Please.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Paramahansa Paripurajaka Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi, Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath, Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj. Welcome everyone to Caitanya Caritamrita class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. Today is April 6th, 2023, and Maharaj is still in London, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
We are reading tonight in the third canto, 15th chapter. I'm sorry, looking at the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're in Adi Leela, chapter 5, text 76. As always, we're eager to hear everyone's comments and questions, so please use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself and speak when Maharaj asks for questions, or you can type your comments into the chat window. And we ask that you not send any chat messages if Maharaj is reading something there, because it makes it difficult to read. At the end of the class, I will post some helpful links that you can share with your friends so that they can attend as well. We're glad that you can join us, Maharaj, from London. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Garbhodakshira Shaidohe Purushnam Shaidvi Jar Angsha Vishnu Bishpadam. Garbhodakshai and Kshirdakshai Garbhodakshai and Kshirdakshai are both called Purushas. They are plenary portions of Karnodakshai Vishnu, the first Purusha, who is the abode of all the universes. Purport. The symptoms of the Purusha are described in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. While describing the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the author has quoted from the Vishnu Purana 6.859, where it is said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Purushottam, Lord Krishna, who is always free from the contamination of the six material dualities, whose plenary expansion, Mahavishnu, glances over matter to create the cosmic manifestation, who expands himself in various transcendental forms, all of which are one and the same, who is the master of all living entities, who is always free and liberated from the contamination of material energy, and who, when he appears in this material world, seems one of us, although he has an eternally spiritual, blissful, transcendental form." In summarizing this statement, Rupa Goswami has concluded that the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who acts in cooperation with the material energy, is called the Purusha. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadhantikam Vande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Panchakol Patarubhyascha Kapasindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashadi Gaur Bhaktaminda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In this section, again, Kaviraj Goswami is glorifying Lord Nityananda Prabhu by explaining his glories in the form of Lord Balaram, the original source of all incarnations. And here, Kaviraj Goswami is outlining the Lord's position as the source of the Purusha avatars. Reviewing this section, a thought that occurred to me is that we're quite familiar with these things, that there are three Purusha avatars, Karnadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu. They're all expansions of Balaram. This is quite well known to most ISKCON devotees. And I would think that much of the credit belongs to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, because he's taken this and many other conclusive truths of Gaudiya Vaishnava understanding and codified them in his Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, along with evidence from various scriptures. These same truths may have been presented by the six Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and so on, but we especially receive them in the form of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where so many truths of Lord Chaitanya's teachings have been gathered and explained. So here, the Purusha avatars, the avatars concerned with the material creation, its birth or its appearance, and its the creation, the maintenance of the cosmic manifestation is done by the Purusha avatars. And let's read on. Vishnostu Trini Rupani Purushakhyanyato Vituhu Ekam tu Mahata Shrashtra Tritiham Vandad Sangstitam Tritiham Sarvabhutastam Tani Gyatva Vimuchyate. Vishnu has three forms called Purushas. The first, Mahavishnu, is the creator of the total material energy, Mahat. The second is Garbhodashayi, who is situated within each universe. And the third is Kshirodashayi, who lives in the heart of every living being. He who knows these three becomes liberated from the clutches of Maya. Purport: this verse appears in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Purva 2.9, where it has been quoted from the Satvata Tantra. Yadyapi kohiye tare Krishna kala kori Matsya kurmadya vatarer tiho avatari. Although Karanodashayi Vishnu is called a Kala of Lord Krishna, he is the source of Matsya, Kurma, and the other incarnations. Ete chamsa kala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridyanti Yuge Yuge. All these incarnations of Godhead are either plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions of the Purusha avatars. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. In every age, he protects the world through his different features when the world is disturbed by the enemies of Indra. This quotation is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 3, Text 28. The list of avatars is given in that chapter, and Krishna is distinguished from the others by this verse. She Purush Shrishti Pralayer Karta Nana Avatara Kore Jagatera Bharta. That Purusha Karnadakshayi Vishnu is the performer of creation, maintenance, and destruction. He manifests himself in many incarnations, for he is the maintainer of the world. Srishyadi nimitte ye angsher abadhan she te angshere kohi abataranam. That fragment of the Supreme Lord, known as the Mahapurusha, appears for the purpose of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and is called an incarnation. Adyavatara Mahapurush Adyavatar Mahapurush Bhagavan Sarva Avatar Bij Sarva Shroye Tam. That Mahapurush is identical with the personality of Godhead. He is the original incarnation, the seed of all others, and the shelter of everything. Adyovatara Purusha Parasya Kala Svabhava Sarasanmanascha Dravyam Vikaro Guna Indriyani Virat Swarats Tasnu Tradishnu Pumnaha. The Purush, Mahavishnu, is the primary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Time, nature, Prakriti as cause and effect, the mind, the material elements, false ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form, complete independence, and the moving and non-moving beings appear subsequently as his opulences. Report describing the incarnations and their symptoms. The Laghu Bhagavatamrita has stated that when Lord Krishna descends to conduct the creative affairs of the material manifestation, he is an avatar or incarnation. The two categories of avatars are empowered devotees and Tadekatma Rupa, the Lord himself. An example of Tadekatma Rupa is Shesha, and an example of a devotee is Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna. Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan has commented that the material cosmic manifestation is a partial kingdom of God, where God must sometimes come to execute a specific function. The plenary portion of the Lord through whom Lord Krishna executes such actions is called Mahavishnu, who is the primal beginning of all incarnations. Inexperienced observers presume that the material energy provides both the cause and the elements of the cosmic manifestation, and that the living entities are the enjoyers of material nature. But the devotees of the Bhagavata school, which has scrutinizingly examined the entire situation, can understand that material nature can independently be neither the supplier of the material elements nor the cause of the material manifestation. Material nature gets the power to supply the material elements from the glance of the Supreme Purusha, Mahavishnu. And when empowered by him, she is called the cause of the material manifestation. Both features of material nature, as the cause of the material creation and as the source of its elements, exist due to the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The various expansions of the Supreme Lord who act to empower the material energy are known as plenary expansions or incarnations. As illustrated by the example of many flames lit from one flame, all these plenary expansions and incarnations are as good as Vishnu himself. Nevertheless, because of their activities in controlling Maya, sometimes they are known as Mayak, or having a relationship with Maya. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6.42. So first, we have this understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself. This understanding is not readily available in many other theological approaches. There's God, and God says, let there be light, or in some other way he creates things. But here we have this elaborate understanding that one of the powers of God is the power to appear simultaneously in various distinct yet integrated forms. Departureva hi dishantaram abhupetya. Dipayate vivitahetu samanatarma yastadrigeva hi chavishnu taya pipati. Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Distinct yet identical forms. As one candle appears as many, so the Supreme Lord appears in various forms. All the forms are non-different, and yet one is the original Krishnastu Bhagavan Swami. So Prabhupada calls these forms expansions, expansions of the Lord, and the Purusha avatars are the expansions that take charge of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Because their business is the material energy, they're sometimes called Mayak, but that doesn't mean that they're under the control of Maya. It means that they're taking charge of Maya. Srila Prabhupada reiterates the point, which we've discussed earlier, that this energy, Maya, has two features: the feature of supplying ingredients for the creation, and the feature of making things happen in the creation. So, material nature can't carry out these functions independently. Material nature can't work without the touch of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right, let's see if there's some comments or questions so far. I see. There are. Indra, in the purport to text 76, Prabhupada quotes the Vishnu Purana. When he appears in this material world, he seems one of us, although he has an eternally spiritual, blissful, transcendental form. In case you care to address it, this statement reminds me that I wonder at Krishna's appearance in the material world. It says here, he seems one of us. Yet we typically see him depicted with an effulgence, which not everyone has. His choosing to appear in disguise, as it were, in a proportionate size is amazing, especially if it's really possible to miss Godhood entirely. I wonder if I would be able to recognize him. It would be really sad to not recognize him at all. In the Bhagavatam, it said, Gudha Kapita Manasha. He appears along with Lord Balaram. The word used, I think, that Prabhupada uses is masked. Gudha Kapita Manasha. Yeah, secretly or in disguise, performing transcendental activities. We read in the Bhagavatam that when Krishna appeared like a human being, Manusha, the different people saw him differently. Oh, you mentioned the effulgence which we see in the paintings, but Kamsa apparently couldn't see it. He thought that Krishna was an ordinary human being, maybe powerful human being, but he couldn't see that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Duryodhana, when Krishna showed a universal form, still had been thinking that Krishna was an ordinary human being, or maybe an extraordinary human being, maybe a tricky human being, maybe a human being with some mystic powers. But he couldn't see that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Brajbasis also couldn't see that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but that was for a different reason. That was because of their love for Krishna. For them, he's their friend, their lover, their child, not Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this scene of Krishna is performed or enacted or accomplished differently by different people according to their relationship with him. Yayatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. If they want to see Krishna as an ordinary human being, then Krishna reciprocates. Yes, that's exactly what I am. And for those who want to see Krishna in a loving relationship, Krishna reciprocates. All right. So, yeah, I think that comments to Kendra Prabhu's points. Now we have Sarshati. We have a hand from Tulsi Priya and we have Sarshati. I'll take Sarshati's first. We know that each incarnation of Krishna rules over their personal planet, and Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna. So does he rule over his personal spiritual planet? As far as I know, he does not rule over his personal spiritual planet. As Sankarshan he does, but as Balaram, he and Krishna appear together in Goloka Vrindavan. Also, is the order of expansions as follows: Balaram, Mahasankarshan, Mahavishnu, Karnadakshay, Garbhadakshay, Kshirodakshay. Now, there's a yes, but there's some further details. We get the expansions of Mahasankarshan and then Vasudev Sankarshan, Pradumna, Niruddha. So we get a second Sankarshan and so on. And to tell you the truth, I get lost in all the expansions. There's so many, but your order is seems correct as far as it goes. Yes, now Tulsi Priya.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was just thinking when you were talking about those who are unable to recognize Krishna, there's also the example of, I think, Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, they had encounters with Krishna or Radharani and they didn't recognize them at first. And I'm thinking if they didn't recognize them at first, what hope would I ever have? But I guess it's Krishna's arrangement. He likes to, kind of play a joke on them or not bowl them over with his presence. He wants to just have an intimate dealing with them as a little boy or a little girl.
Yes. This is Krishna's kindness. Something else? Okay, let me just see one thing. Okay. Agrihe Paurusham Rupam Bhagavan Mahadadibhi Samputam Shodashakalam Adho Loka Sushrikshaya. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord expanded himself in the form of the Purusha incarnation, accompanied by all the ingredients of material creation. First, he created the 16 principal elements, 16 principal energies suitable for creation. This was for the purpose of manifesting the material universes. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 131. The commentary of Madhva on Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that the following 16 spiritual energies are present in the spiritual world. 1, Shri, 2, I'm just going to read them without the numbers. It makes it easier. Shri, Bhu, Lila, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Gir, Pushti, Satya, Gyanangana, Jaya Utkarshani, Bimala, Yogamaya, Pravhi, Ishana, and Anugraha. In his commentary on his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Sri Baladev Bijabhushan has said that the above energies are also known by 9 names: Vimala, Utkarshani, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Ravi, Satya, Ishana, and Anugraha. In the Bhagavat Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami, text 117, they are described as Shri Pushti Gir Kanti Kirti Tushti Ila Jaya Vidya Vidya Maya Samvit Sandani Ladini Bhakti Murti Bimala Yoga Pravi Ishana Anugraha, etc. All these energies act in different spheres of the Lord's supremacy. Well, Shodasha, the Lord has 16 energies. In the verse that's translated by Srila Prabhupada, we hear that these are in relation to the material creation. Although in the purport we hear that there are 16 spiritual energies, and they're enumerated in various ways as 16, as 9, and so on. In South India, we find the Lord often represented with Sri Nila, principal energies of the Lord. And here the energies are enumerated further. The Saraswati says that she too gets lost about the order of the expansions of the Lord. The incarnations have their own names, but is Krishna's name supreme? Yes, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Abhindavtvan Namanamino. There's no difference between the Lord and his name. And of all the forms of the Lord, Krishna is distinct because Krishna is the original. So Krishna is the original person, his name is the original name, and so on. And yet all the names are identical to Krishna's names. Yet Krishna is the original, and we hear elsewhere that 1,000 names of Vishnu equal one name of Lord Ram, and 3 names of Ram equal one of Krishna. Okay. Anything else so far? Okay, I think I'll open the door because I have lots of nice heat in this room, and it will put me to sleep unless I have some air to breathe. Yajapi sarvashroy tiho tahate tahate sangsar antaratma rupetiho jagat antar. Although the Lord is the shelter of everything, and although all the universes rest in him, he, as the supersoul, is also the support of everything. Prakriti sahitetar ubhay sambandha tatapi prakriti shaha nahi sparshagandha. Although he is thus connected with the material energy in 2 ways, he does not have the slightest contact with it. Purport. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami, commenting upon the Lord's transcendental position beyond the material qualities, says that Vishnu, as the controller and superintendent of material nature, has a connection with the material qualities. That connection is called yoga. However, the person who directs a prison is not also a prisoner. Similarly, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, directs or supervises the qualitative nature, he has no connection with the material modes of nature. The expansions of Lord Vishnu always retain their supremacy. They are never connected with the material qualities. One may argue that Mahavishnu cannot have any connection with the material qualities, because if he were so connected, Srimad Bhagavatam wouldn't state that material nature, ashamed of her thankless task of acting to induce the living entities to become averse to the Supreme Lord, remains behind the Lord in shyness. In answer to this argument, it may be said that the word guna means regulation. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva are situated within this universe as the directors of the three modes, and their connection with the modes is known as yoga. This does not indicate, however, that these personalities are bound by the qualities of nature. Lord Vishnu specifically is always the controller of the three qualities. There's no question of his coming under their control. In the Bhagavad Gita, well, again, we're pursuing this issue that the Mahavishnu or all the Vishnus are in touch with material nature, and yet they're unaffected by material nature. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamritina vatstani sarvabhutani vatstani sarvabhutani nate. My goodness.
Nachaham teshvavastita.
Natvaham, tell me again.
Nachaham teshvavastita.
Chaham teshvavastitam. Thank you. Nachamatstani bhutani ashame yoga maishram. Bhuta brin, nachabhuta stolamatma bhuta bhavana. Ta kashostita nityam. Vayu sarvatra go mahan. Tata sarvani bhutani matstani tubhadavya. The Lord is connected with material nature and yet aloof from material nature. He pervades the material nature and yet he's distant from material nature. Yata Akasha Stito Nityam, the example given is that within space, the wind is blowing, or within the sky, the wind is blowing, but space or the sky is unaffected by the blowing of the wind. So the Lord is connected to the material nature, and yet not connected, certainly not affected. Even the devotees who serve the Lord are ultimately unaffected by material nature. Then what to speak of the Lord? Although the causal and element supplying features exist in material nature by dint of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is never affected by glancing over the material qualities. By the will of the Supreme Lord, the different qualitative changes in the material world take place. But there's no possibility of material affection, change, or contamination for Lord Vishnu. Yes. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Maharaj, when we hear about Lord Brahma becoming angry, such as when he became angry at the Kumaras, or when Lord Shiva became angry after Sati immolated herself, is this not, their anger is not a symptom of their being affected by the modes? I would say not Lord Shiva, maybe definitely, but what about Brahma? We don't understand that he's never affected by the modes, or, well, we hear about him having lustful feelings, so I'm a little bit confused as to what it means to not be controlled and yet exhibit a symptom that makes it seem like you're being controlled.
One understanding, of course, one understanding is that, well, yes, Lord Brahma is in charge of the modes of nature, specifically the mode of passion, so he's sometimes affected by passion. Lord Shiva's in charge of the mode of ignorance, so he's sometimes affected by the mode of ignorance. We see this in the pastime concerning Bhrigu Muni testing the three deities. He sees that Brahma and Shiva are sometimes affected, but Vishnu's unaffected. That underscores the point here about Lord Vishnu, that even when one would have thought he'd be affected, he was undisturbed, even by the greatest insult. Another way of looking at Brahma being affected or Shiva being affected is that these are workings of Krishna's spiritual energy. When the devotee seems to be affected by material nature, it's actually Krishna acting. We were just reading a purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concerning this, and he was saying, in essence, that just what I said, that Krishna, the devotees are really under the control not of material nature, but of Krishna, both in regard to their happiness and their distress. When it appears that there's happiness, because the devotee is supposed to be above duality, sukhe dukkhe same kritva, but Vishnu says or Baladev, whichever one we were reading, was saying that when there's distress, when there's happiness, it's just a byproduct of bhakti. It's just a byproduct of bhakti. And when there's distress, it's Krishna's kindness to the devotee. Yasyaham nugranami karishe taddanam shanai. It appears that he's being overwhelmed by the modes of nature, but actually he's being granted a benediction by the personality of Godhead. So it appears to be the action of material nature upon the devotee can actually be an effect of the Lord's mercy and the mercy of devotional service. The commentator does say, though, that when there's distress for a devotee, it may also be on account of Vaishnava aparadhas. That's his. And there's something more up here. Let's see. Saraswati says, if Brahma is usually a jiva, what tattva is Shiva? Because he isn't a Vishnu tattva, and the name Shiva is not a position, like Brahma, Indra, etc. And Tulsi Priya says, as far as I know, he's his own tattva. Yes, that's the actual position. Shiram Yata Dadivikara Vishesha Yoga. The Shiva is neither in Vishnu's position nor in the position of the living entities. He has his own unique situation. No living entity, a pious living entity after 100 births can become Lord Brahma. No, no living entity can become Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is a separate category, neither Jiva nor Vishnu. Okay, we can read a little bit more. Etad ishanam ishasya prakritistopi tad gunaihi yujyate sadatmastar yata buddhistadashraya. This is the opulence of the Lord. Although situated within the material nature, he is never affected by the modes of nature. Similarly, those who have surrendered to him and have fixed their intelligence upon him are not influenced by the modes of nature. Purport: this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11-38. E mata Gita he Gita teha puna puna koi Garbada ishar tattva achintya shakti hoy. Thus the Bhagavad Gita also states again and again that the absolute truth always possesses inconceivable power. Amita jagate bashi jagat amate na ami jagate bashi na ama jagate. Lord Krishna said, I am situated in the material world, and the world rests in me. But at the same time, I am not situated in the material world, nor does it rest in me in truth. Purport: nothing in existence is possible unless energized by the will of the Lord. The entire manifested creation is therefore resting on the energy of the Lord. But one should not therefore presume that the material manifestation is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Cloud may rest in the sky, but that does not mean that the sky and the cloud are one and the same. Similarly, the qualitative material nature and its products are never identical with the Supreme Lord. The tendency to lord it over material nature, or Maya, cannot be a feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he descends to the material world, he maintains his transcendental nature, unaffected by the material qualities. In both the spiritual and material worlds, he is always the controller of all energies. The uncontaminated spiritual nature always exists within him. The Lord appears and disappears in this material world in different features for his pastimes, yet he is the origin of all cosmic manifestations. The material manifestation cannot exist separate from the Supreme Lord, yet Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in spite of his connection with material nature, cannot be subordinate to nature's influence. His original form of eternal bliss and knowledge is never subordinate to the three qualities of material nature. This is a specific feature of the Supreme Lord's inconceivable cease. All right. Anything here? Otherwise, we're just about at the end of our hour. Okay. Kirtan? Who's leading Kirtan?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripraj Kacharja Ashtotar Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayādvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.
Haridas Maharaj Ki Jai.
Thank you, Krishna Kamtiya Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Please share the class links in the chat box with your friends. And tomorrow, I hope we can all see each other again for Srimad Bhagavatam class with Maharaj. Maharaj, thank you so much for giving us your valuable association at this ungodly hour for you.
Godly,
Caitanya,
godly,
Caritamrita.
godly.
It's a godly hour.
That's true, it is godly. Caitanya Caritamrita class ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Okay.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Premanande.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Gurmaharaj.
Krishna, thank you.